The persistent hum of the server room was the soundtrack to my life. As an IT specialist in Manchester, my days were filled with lines of code, network configurations, and the occasional panicked call from someone who'd forgotten their password. My name is Alaric, and I was, until recently, a happy man. I was 46, happily married to Bronte for 15 years. We had a comfortable life, a nice house in the suburbs, and two wonderful children, a son named Caius and a daughter named Anya. Bronte was a primary school teacher, a kind and patient woman adored by her students and respected by her colleagues. Our life wasn't perfect, of course. There were the usual stresses of work, raising children, and navigating the complexities of modern life. But we were a team, always there for each other, facing challenges together. Or so I thought. The first sign that something was amiss was subtle. Bronte started working late more often. She'd always been dedicated to her job, but this was different. She'd come home exhausted, barely able to eat dinner before collapsing into bed. When I asked her about it, she'd say it was extra paperwork, new curriculum changes, or meetings with parents. I didn't doubt her. I trusted her implicitly. Then came the phone calls. Bronte had always been open with her phone, leaving it on the kitchen counter or the living room table. But lately she'd been taking it everywhere with her, even to the bathroom. She'd also started receiving calls at odd hours, and when I'd ask who it was, she'd brush it off as a wrong number or a call from a parent. I tried to ignore it, telling myself I was being paranoid, but the feeling of unease persisted. The final straw was the perfume. Bronte had always worn a light floral scent, something fresh and clean. But one evening she came home smelling of something different, something musky and unfamiliar. When I commented on it, she said a colleague had spilled some on her at school. It sounded plausible, but the seed of doubt had already been planted. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I started paying closer attention to Bronte's behavior, noticing little things I'd overlooked before. The way she'd flinch when I touched her, the way she'd avoid my gaze, the way she'd seem distant and preoccupied, even when we were together. It was like she was a different person, a stranger in my own home. One Saturday morning, Bronte told me she had to go to school for a staff meeting. I offered to drive her, but she insisted on taking the bus. I found it odd, but I didn't push it. After she left, I tried to distract myself by working in the garden, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being lied to. Driven by a growing sense of dread, I decided to follow her. I knew it was a breach of trust, but I couldn't ignore the nagging voice in my head. I got in my car and drove to the bus stop, arriving just as Bronte's bus pulled away. I followed the bus, my heart pounding in my chest. The bus didn't go to Bronte's school. Instead, it headed in the opposite direction, towards the city center. I continued to follow, my mind racing with possibilities, none of them good. The bus stopped near a small, boutique hotel and Bronte got off. She walked quickly towards the hotel entrance, glancing around nervously. I parked my car a block away and watched as Bronte disappeared inside the hotel. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, my hands trembling, my stomach churning. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I loved and trusted, was going into a hotel with someone else. After what felt like hours, I saw Bronte emerge from the hotel, accompanied by a man. He was tall and handsome, with dark hair and a confident swagger. I didn't recognize him. They walked hand in hand down the street, laughing and talking like a couple in love. I watched them, my heart breaking into a million pieces. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't feel anything but a crushing sense of betrayal. I wanted to confront them, to scream and shout and demand answers, but I was frozen in place, paralyzed by shock and disbelief. They stopped in front of a restaurant and went inside. I knew I couldn't stay there any longer. I started my car and drove home, my mind numb, my vision blurred by tears. When Bronte came home later that afternoon, she acted as if nothing had happened. She asked me about my day, told me about her staff meeting, and made dinner. I sat there watching her, my heart filled with a mixture of anger, sadness, and disgust. I couldn't pretend any longer. After dinner, I confronted her. "I know," I said, my voice trembling. "I know about the hotel, about him." Bronte's face turned white. Stammered, "I don't know what you're talking about, don't lie to me," I said, my voice rising. "I saw you, I followed you, I saw you go into that hotel with him." Bronte burst into tears. "It's not what you think," she sobbed. "It just happened, it was a mistake." A mistake, I repeated, my voice filled with disbelief. You went to a hotel with another man. How can that be a mistake? Bronte tried to explain, to justify her actions, but I couldn't listen. I was too hurt, too angry, too betrayed. I told her to leave, to get out of my house and out of my life. Bronte begged me to forgive her, to give her another chance, but I couldn't. The trust was broken, the love was gone. I couldn't imagine spending another day, another minute with her. She left that night, taking a suitcase filled with her clothes and her belongings. As she walked out the door, she turned to me and said, "You'll regret this, Alaric, you'll see." I didn't regret it. I knew I was doing the right thing. I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies and deceit. I deserved better, and so did my children. The next few weeks were a blur. I hired a lawyer, filed for divorce, and tried to navigate the complexities of separating our lives. It was painful and exhausting, but I knew I had to do it, for myself and for my children. I told Caius and Anya about the divorce, explaining that their mother and I couldn't live together anymore. They were heartbroken, but they understood. They were old enough to sense that something was wrong, and they were relieved to finally know the truth. The divorce was finalized a few months later. Bronte got half of our assets, including the house. I moved into a small apartment in the city center, closer to my work. It was a fresh start, a chance to rebuild my life. I threw myself into my work, spending long hours in the server room, losing myself in lines of code. It was a way to escape the pain, to forget about Bronte and the betrayal. One evening, as I was working late, I received an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "You deserve to know the truth." Intrigued, I opened the email. It contained a series of photographs taken from a distance. They showed Bronte and the man from the hotel engaging in intimate acts. The photographs were explicit and shocking. I stared at the photographs, my heart pounding in my chest. I felt a surge of anger, not just at Bronte, but at myself. I had been so naive, so trusting, so blind to the truth. The email also contained information about the man. His name was Emrys, and he was a local businessman, married with 2 children. He and Bronte had been having an affair for over a year. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe that Bronte had been lying to me for so long, that she had been leading a double life right under my nose. I decided to confront Emrys' wife. I knew it was risky, but I couldn't let him get away with what he had done. I found her address online and drove to her house. Her name was Rhiannon, and she was a beautiful woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. When I told her about the affair, she was devastated. She broke down in tears, unable to believe that her husband could do such a thing. I showed her the photographs, and she became even more distraught. She thanked me for telling her the truth, saying that she had suspected something was going on, but she had been afraid to confront him. Rhiannon decided to leave Emrys. She filed for divorce and moved out of their house, taking her children with her. Emrys was left alone, his life in ruins. I don't know what happened to Bronte. After the divorce, she disappeared from my life. I heard rumors that she had moved to another city, but I never saw her again. I didn't want to. I focused on my children, on my work, on rebuilding my life. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to move on, to find happiness again. Years passed. Caius and Anya grew up, went to university, and started their own lives. I remarried to a wonderful woman named Lori, who loved me for who I was, flaws and all. One day, as I was cleaning out my attic, I came across a box filled with old photographs. I opened the box and began to look through the pictures, remembering the happy times I had shared with Bronte and the children. I found a photograph of Bronte, taken shortly after we were married. She was young and beautiful, her eyes filled with love and hope. I stared at the photograph, feeling a pang of sadness. I wondered what had gone wrong, what had led her to betray me. I realized that I would never know the answer. Bronte was a mystery to me, a woman I had loved and trusted but ultimately didn't understand. I closed the box and put it back in the attic. It was time to let go of the past, to move on with my life. I had found happiness again, and I wasn't going to let anything, not even the memory of Bronte, take that away from me. I learned a valuable lesson from my experience with Bronte. I learned that trust is a precious thing, easily broken and hard to repair. I learned that people are not always who they seem to be, and that even the ones we love the most are capable of betrayal. But I also learned that it is possible to survive heartbreak, to rebuild your life, and to find happiness again. It takes time and effort and a willingness to let go of the past, but it is possible. And so, I continued to live my life, grateful for the love and happiness I had found with Lowry, and determined to make the most of every day. The scars of Bronte's betrayal would always be there, but they would not define me. I was a survivor, a fighter, and I would not let the past destroy my future. I am Alaric, and this is my story of betrayal, heartbreak, and ultimately, survival.